Okay, so we're driving into some really interesting stuff today. This whole thing about AI and art and
Yeah.
specifically all the buzz around AI image generation that's got that, Studio Ghibli vibe.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast this has gone from, just a concept to like a huge discussion.
Totally. And for this deep dive, we're going to really unpack what started all the arguments from every angle and what it means for creativity.
Yeah.
Copyright the future of art, in this world where AI is everywhere.
It's like it's bigger than just animation, This is
Mhm.
about what it means to be an artist, what counts as original when AI is in the mix.
Exactly. And by the end of this, you should have a good grasp of the main issues and be able to, start forming your own opinion on all this
Sure.
because things are changing so quickly. It's like the Wild West out there.
Definitely.
So to kick things off, let's talk about this Ghibli-style phenomenon that's tied to ChatGPT 4.0. What exactly happened?
Well, OpenAI, they just launched this updated version of their language model, GPT-4o, and the O stands for Omni, which kind of hints at all the new things it can do. Like it's way better at creating both text and images in real time. And the thing that really caught people's attention online, especially creative folks in Asia, was its ability to make images that looked a lot like Studio Ghibli film.
Right.
Yeah.
Like My Neighbor Totoro or Spirited Away.
Exactly. Those gentle lines, the imaginative characters, the magical settings.
I saw some of those images going around, and the resemblance was pretty spot on.
Hmm.
It really did feel like they fed the AI a ton of Miyazaki films and then said, okay, now make more like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what sparked these really strong reactions. It wasn't just a passing similarity.
Right. It wasn't subtle at all.
Exactly. The closeness of the imitation is what made it controversial. It felt like a straight up copy of this unique and beloved artistic style.
And that leads us right into copyright and ethics, which feels like the big question mark in all of this. When AI makes something that looks so much like a copyrighted work or an artist's signature style, where's the line legally and morally?
All right, so it brings up this question of how copyright law, which was made for a different time, how it applies to AI, because traditionally copyright protects specific things like a particular movie or
Like a
illustration.
tangible thing.
Yeah, exactly. But can it protect a broader artistic style?
That's much harder to define.
It's very legally ambiguous, and a
Yeah.
lot of the debate focuses on whether training an AI on copyrighted images is itself infringement.
Because it's learning from and reproducing elements of those works.
Right, some say that's a clear violation. Others say it's more like transformative use, like when a human artist studies tons of art to develop their own style.
That's an interesting point.
So even if it's legally unclear whether it's okay to train an AI on Ghibli films to produce similar images, the ethical question still stands.
Like, is it okay to replicate someone's unique style so closely, even if it's not technically illegal?
Right, and for a lot of people, it just feels disrespectful to the original creators
Hmm.
to take their artistic voice, which they developed over years of work.
Decades in the case of Studio Ghibli.
Exactly, and have an AI replicate it so easily, it feels like it devalues their effort, their unique vision.
And this isn't just any random style we're talking about. This is Studio Ghibli, a studio with a strong artistic identity, led by a figure who commands so much respect, Hayao Miyazaki. And his views on AI in art have been pretty vocal.
They have indeed. He's expressed reservations, even outright criticism of AI in creative fields.
Didn't he have a pretty strong reaction to a demo of AI-generated animation a few years back?
He did in 2016. He saw this demo, and his response was, "This is an insult to life itself."
Wow, that's powerful. What was the context for that quote? What do you think he meant?
Well, based on what he's said elsewhere and also looking at the themes in his films, it's clear that he places a huge value on the human element in art. The emotions, the empathy, the sheer effort and personal touch that goes into hand-drawn animation.
The soul of...
Yes, and he seems to feel that these qualities are fundamentally human. They can't be truly replicated by algorithms. So when AI tries to create art, he sees it as bypassing that essential human connection and therefore missing the point of what art is. It lacks that spark of life that comes from human intention and feeling.
So on the one hand, you have this amazing technology that can mimic a beloved style. And on the other, you have these concerns about copyright ethics, the spirit of art as someone like Miyazaki sees it. And this all ties into this bigger conversation about originality versus replication. If AI can copy so easily, what happens to the value we place on original human creativity?
It's a crucial question. Critics of AI mimicry say it could definitely devalue original work. Because if anyone can generate a Ghibli-esque image with a few prompts, does that make the actual Ghibli films less special?
The ones that came from years of human effort and artistic vision.
Exactly. There's this worry that it could lead to a kind of homogenization of art where unique styles get flattened into easily reproducible templates.
But then there's the counter-argument, right? The idea that artists have always learned by studying and being inspired by other artists.
That's true. Look at art history. Movements building on each other, artists referencing their predecessors. So where does AI fit into that? Is it just a digital version of that same learning and inspiration process?
A natural evolution.
Yeah, that's a good point. Those who see AI as a positive force in art might say it's just a new tool for learning and exploration. Like, artists have always studied the techniques and styles of the masters. But a key difference is the speed and the lack of conscious understanding behind the AI's learning.
It's not absorbing the meaning and nuance in the same way a human would.
Right. And that takes us back to this question of AI as a tool. Is it just another brush, another camera, another software? Or is it something fundamentally different?
Because it's creating on its own in a way.
Exactly, and that's a big part of the debate. Many people argue that AI's ability to generate content independently with minimal human input is what makes it so different. Traditional art tools require a lot of human skill and effort to make something meaningful. But with AI, a human might give the initial prompt or direction, but the actual image creation happens largely on its own.
So it raises questions about authorship,
Mhm.
about who's really the creative force here.
Right, but it's important to remember that humans are still involved. They craft the prompts, they choose the styles, they often do a lot of editing and refining of what the AI produces, so it's not totally hands-off.
And we're seeing artists use AI in their workflows now, aren't we? For things like concept development or brainstorming. It's not necessarily about AI replacing artists, but maybe expanding their capabilities.
Exactly. It has huge potential for collaboration between humans and AI. AI could be great for coming up with initial ideas, exploring different visual possibilities really quickly, or even doing some of the more repetitive tasks in art creation. It could even help people who don't have traditional training express themselves creatively.
That's an interesting thought. But like you said earlier, with great power comes great responsibility, especially when it comes to creative expression.
Absolutely. We need to think carefully about the ethics and make sure we're using it responsibly.
This whole Ghibli AI art thing feels like a microcosm of a much bigger conversation we're having globally about AI in all creative fields.
It is. It's not just animation, it's music writing design.
Everything.
It touches everything. And the reason this Ghibli example has resonated so much is partly because of Studio Ghibli's cultural impact and how recognizable their style is.
So distinct.
Exactly. But the questions we're grappling with here are universal. Should AI-generated content be clearly labeled? How can artists protect their styles? Will AI replace human creativity or enhance it? And what kind of rules or guidelines do we need to make sure AI is used ethically?
These are huge questions with no easy answers. So thinking about responsible AI use in creative fields, what are some things we could do to navigate this new world?
Well, there are a few paths we could explore. First, transparency about the data used to train AI models. Companies should be encouraged or even required to disclose where their AI is learning from. That would build trust and let artists know if their work is being used.
Like a chain of custody.
Exactly. And then there's the idea of clearly labeling AI-generated content so people know what they're looking at.
Like a digital watermark or something?
Yeah, that would be important for transparency and for preserving the understanding of human-created art. And then there's the tricky issue of consent and compensation for artists. Should they have a say in whether their work is used to train AIs? And if their work is used extensively, should they be compensated or get royalties?
It gets complicated quickly.
It does. These are tough questions, but we need to address them. And then there's the idea of attribution. Even if something isn't technically copyright infringement, if it's clearly inspired by a specific artist or style giving credit would be a good practice.
Like citing your sources in a paper.
Exactly. And then there's the need for public education about AI, helping people understand how it works, what it can and can't do, so they can be more thoughtful about creating and consuming AI-generated content.
And that would help us avoid some of the knee-jerk reactions and fear-mongering that we're seeing.
Absolutely. And finally, we should support ways for humans and AI to collaborate, where AI is a tool to help artists, not replace them, focusing on how AI can enhance human skills and creativity.
It's all about finding that balance.
It is.
So before we wrap up, let's quickly go over some of the key terms we've been using: controversy, copyright. Can you give us a quick rundown of what those mean in this context?
Sure. So controversy, that's basically a big public disagreement or debate. And that's definitely what's happening with this Ghibli-style AI art. Copyright is the legal right given to creators of original works. And it's at the heart of all these questions about AI mimicking artistic styles. To imitate means to copy someone's style or behavior. And AI's ability to do that so well is a big part of this discussion. Ethics, those are the moral principles that guide our actions. And we've talked about the ethical side of AI creating art that looks like human-made art. Backlash. That's a strong negative reaction, which we saw online when those AI images came out. Replication means making a close copy. And the level of replication AI can achieve is what's so striking. Infringement is violating someone's rights, especially copyright. And lastly, attribution is giving credit to the original creator, which could become even more important with AI-generated art.
So it seems like this whole deep dive into the Ghibli AI art thing really highlights this tension between the power of new technology and our efforts to define what creativity, ownership, and ethics mean in a world that's changing so fast.
And it forces us to look at our values. What do we consider essential to human creativity and artistic expression?
The questions about inspiration versus infringement, the role of the artist, the responsible use of powerful tools, they're not going away anytime soon. And hopefully now you have a clearer picture of the arguments and the bigger implications of all this.
You've definitely given everyone a lot to think about.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Here's one last thought to ponder. As AI keeps evolving, how might our very definition of art need to change? Is it the process, the intent, or the final product that matters most when we decide what is art? Something to chew on.
It really is.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. It's been a fascinating conversation, and I'm sure we'll be revisiting this topic again soon.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Until next time, stay curious.
And keep creating.